The Russia-Ukraine war enters its fifth year in February 2026. That's just a few months from now. It is a war that President Trump said he would end in 24 hours. It's been nearly a year. The war rages on. Now a US plan to end the Russia-Ukraine war is making waves. This 28-point US peace framework, reportedly drafted by Steve Witkoff, the US envoy in consultation with Russian officials, is making waves. It proposes an immediate halt to all hostilities. This includes missile and drone strikes, Black Sea naval operations, and ground advances in the Russia-Ukraine theater. Now, this plan has not been officially confirmed by the White House. It was released by a Ukrainian member of parliament and reported by a British newspaper. Now, this plan has all the hallmarks of President Trump's recent peace deals. But this one has sparked outrage in Kyiv and Brussels. Ukrainian and EU officials have rejected it, saying it ignores their inputs and rewards Russian aggression. Now, the EU is now the largest funder of the war in Ukraine. But let's look at what this proposal broadly means for all the parties in the conflict. Russia gets back into the global economy if this proposal becomes a reality. It gets to keep Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk. Of course, needs to respect Ukrainian sovereignty and sign a non-aggression agreement with Ukraine and Europe. The proposal envisages a guarantee that there will be no eastward expansion of NATO, exactly what Russia wanted. Russia will be reintegrated into the global economy, sanctions will be lifted, it can join the G8. It loses around $100 billion of its assets that have been frozen globally. Russia's $350 odd billion of being frozen. It would lose $100 billion from that for reconstruction of Ukraine. Now, the United States, money, minerals, and contracts. That's what the US gets. It's after all a deal that President Trump has pushed. It gets contracts to rebuild war-torn Ukraine. It creates a Ukrainian development fund to invest in AI and data centers. Most importantly, it gets 50% of profits from this $100 billion Russian frozen funds. It gets to extract minerals and natural resources from Ukraine. It also gets energy, natural resources, infrastructure, rare earths, metal extraction project deals with Russia in the Arctic. It gets to extend the validity of the nuclear non-proliferation and arms control agreements with Russia. Now, what does Ukraine get in this bargain? Now, Ukraine, of course, loses its territory, 20%, which is currently under Russian occupation, but it survives as a sovereign nation. It won't get NATO membership, but it gets EU membership. It has to agree to become a non-nuclear state. Let's not forget that Ukraine was briefly a nuclear weapon state after the breakup of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. Now, Ukraine has to enshrine in its constitution that it won't join NATO. It has to withdraw from the Donetsk Oblast. It has to hold elections within 100 days. Ukraine's sovereignty, of course, will be respected by the Russian Federation, and it will get reliable security guarantees. It has to limit its armed forces to just 600,000 personnel. And finally, the European Union. What the EU gets are guarantees against Russian aggression. Russia will not invade Europe. It will enshrine, in fact, non-aggression in its laws, Russia's laws. It will sign a comprehensive non-aggression agreement with Ukraine and with Europe. And of course, all ambiguities of the last 3 decades will be considered settled. Now, if the Russia-Ukraine agreement is actually realized, this is what the map of Ukraine could look like. That is, 20% of Ukraine, which is currently under Russian occupation, will be deemed as part of Russia. But with the EU and Ukraine opposing this agreement even before it's been formally made, it's anyone's guess if this would be yet another attempt by the Trump administration to solve what seems to be one of the longest wars of the 21st century.